Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Spider and welcome back to another review. And today we're taking a look at the Trendmasters 1998 Godzilla Shatter Blast. This figure released back in 1998 and based on their appearance from the 1998 Godzilla movie. Take a shot every time I say 1998. Anywho, now while I usually start off my reviews by taking a look at the packaging, I don't have it, so here's a trash can instead. Okay, enough of that, on to the figure. And first things first, we'll take a look at its articulation. Now, there's no movement at the head, but there's a reason for that we'll talk about in a little bit. You can open the jaw, but it just springs closed again, so again, we'll talk about that later. The arms can move all the way around. They kind of bump into the leg a little bit, but you can get them to move. And then you get a swivel at the wrist, forearm, whatever you would call that. Nothing at the torso. The leg can kick that far forward and that far back. You get a hinge at the knee. So you can get some movement there. You can get a hinge at the ankle, so you can get some movement there. And then you get a swivel at the base of the tail, which is a little too loose for my taste, but that's what happens to figures over time. It's unfortunate, but it happens. And that is pretty much it for the articulation. And overall, for the time, it's pretty well... I can't speak. It's fairly well articulated. You know, especially in the legs. There's a lot of movement here you can get, which is nice because this Godzilla was running around a lot in the film, so it's nice you can kind of represent that with this figure. It's pretty nice. In fact, you can even get the figure to stand up without using the tail for balance, which is very nice. I appreciate that you can do that because, you know, the creature was... Come on. Because the creature was standing like this for the majority of the film, you know, smacking helicopters out of the sky and whatnot. Wasn't really using its tail for balance much in the film, so I like that you can replicate that with the figure. It does, you do kind of gotta mess around with it to get it to stand like that, and it's made even worse on my figure because the legs on mine are crooked. You can see that, but they kind of point inward instead of just going straight up and down. Yeah, I don't know how that happened, because I'm not the original owner of this figure, so whoever owned it previously messed up the legs a bit, so it makes it a little harder to stand on my copy. It's actually a bit easier on others. Yeah, ooh, that's a little too bright. But yeah, articulation, pretty good. I like it. Especially for an old classic Trendmaster story, it's pretty dang good. Now that we're done with articulation, we can zoom in here and bring up the camera a little bit and talk about the details. Now, the majority of the figure is this silverish, bluish, grayish color, which isn't super accurate to the film, but then again, the traditional Trendmasters Godzilla is green with silver dorsal plates, so I don't think they care much about accuracy. But even still, the color works pretty well. It doesn't look too bad. And you just get a yellow splotch for the eye, and it's the same on both sides. That's, alright, maybe we could have done that a little bit better. Got individually sculpted and painted teeth. You get some pink paint on the inside of the mouth. And overall, the head sculpt is pretty good. I think they did a fairly good job at replicating that design. The hands, the arms, the chest, got the legs. And if you notice, there's this tan paint that's on the figure that really just kind of makes the figure look like it's dirty. Like you see all this stuff like on the arms and everything that looks like dirt. No, that's paint. It's just tan paint, and so it makes the figure look more dirty than it actually is. And it scrapes off super easily, so I don't know, I feel like they could have just left off the tan paint, because it just gets scraped off and doesn't make the figure look better. So Yeah, whatever. You get nice detail on the legs. And you get the dorsal spines. Some were painted silver, some were just left the bare plastic. And then you go all the way up the tail. So yeah, sculpt-wise, it's fairly nice. You know, it is a bit toyetic sized, if that makes any sense. You know, the Trendmasters is known to do that, but even still, it's a pretty good representation of the 98 Godzilla. I do quite like it. Looks fairly nice. And it does have a gimmick. Figure comes with a missile. Just, you know, a little missile here. And if you see this cleverly hidden switch, this dorsal plate here, you push that down, it opens up the mouth. You can put the missile in there. And then you push that same fin to launch the missile. So yeah, it's got a missile launching gimmick, which you think more Godzilla figures would have that, considering their main thing they're known for is shooting beams. Actually, it's kind of ironic that this one has a missile launcher and others don't, because this is one of the very few that don't have an atomic breath, but whatever. I appreciate that the missile is blue instead of just, you know, traditional, just fire color. I like they went with blue because Godzilla's atomic breath is blue. Although when this one finally did get a beam, it was actually green, not blue, but there was no way they could have known that. So yeah, put that in there. And even after all these years, the spring in there is actually pretty strong. It fires the missile pretty hard. How hard, you may ask? Well, let's find out by taking it to the firing range. Alright, so here we got the firing range set up, and basically we've got some targets, and we've got a missile. We're going to shoot at it and see if it's strong enough to knock them over. So, first up we start with something easy, like just a little Lego minifigure. See if we cannot shoot it into oblivion. Pass that pretty easily. If it's, see if we can knock over this little minion thingamabob. Yep. Now we test it against an empty Altoids can. And finally, let's see if we can't knock over another Trendmasters figure. Didn't seem to knock over. Let's try one more time. Alrighty. Seems this figure is a bit too sturdy to knock over. So, yeah, the missile is pretty strong. Well, it does have some trouble knocking stuff over that is closer to its size. Otherwise, if it's a bit smaller than it, it can knock it over pretty easily. So, it's pretty impressive that a spring is still that powerful even after all these years. So, be careful, it launches it pretty far, so you might lose it. Although, there is a bit of difficulty aiming with the missile, because you're kind of using, like, you know, the head as, like, your aimer, but if you see, the missile actually aims a little more downward. So, kind of gotta, hey, there we go. Keep that in mind when aiming the figure. Yeah, that is pretty cool. I like the little missile launching gimmick. And the figure is supposed to come with another accessory, but unfortunately, I don't have that anymore. Or actually, I never had it, because I got this figure used, and all it came with was the missile. At least that's all I saw it with, because I found this figure at just a random toy fair type thing, and it was just sitting on a shelf, and it just happened to come with the missile. I was fortunate to get even that. Yeah, the Shatter Blast came with a missile launcher. And there were actually other versions of this figure you could get. There were 3 altogether. There was this one, the Shatter Blast. And then there was the Nuclear Strike, which came with a Hornet jet, and then the Tornado Blast, which came with an Apache helicopter. Now, the Godzilla didn't change at all, so same thing with each set, but the little accessory was different. And I would have, gotten a new one so I could review the whole set, but unfortunately, there's a little money problem with that one, but we'll get into that at the end of the review. But overall, yeah, gimmick and everything, I think it's pretty fun. And, it's pretty cool being able to move the mouth like this by just moving the fin. That's kind of fun. Hey, what's going on? That's kind of cool. Although, be careful, these are not rubber. They are hard plastic, and so it does kind of poke into your thumb or whatever finger you use to open the mouth. So, yeah, other than that, pretty neat. Although I do wish you could just open it normally. That is the only drawback of it. Is that, you can't just open the jaw normally and keep it open. It's always going to spring close. But other than that, I like it. It's fun. So now on to the size comparisons. So to start things off as always, here it is with a Lego minifigure. With the Pack of Destruction minifigure Mothra. With the Pack of Destruction minifigure Godzilla. Now to compare it with another Trendmasters figure I reviewed, here it is with the 4-inch Mecha Godzilla. You get an idea how it scales with some Bandai Godzilla figures. Here it is with the 54 Godzilla. And here it is with the 2000s Godzilla. So it actually scales pretty well with Bandai Godzilla figures, which is very nice because for the longest time, Bandai wouldn't touch this design with a 10-foot pole. It's only recently that we finally got figures of not only the 98 Godzilla, but also Zilla from Final Wars. But for years, you didn't really have a Godzilla or a Zilla figure to go with other Godzilla figures. Except for this guy. That's cool. I'm really glad this guy existed, because I didn't know he existed. So when I found him at that toy fair, I was a happy boy that day. Anyways, continuing on with the size comparisons. Here it is with the NECA 1994 Godzilla. Just because. There it is with the Bandai Final Wars 12-inch Godzilla. Just gonna get a look at that. And finally, here it is with the previous review, the Toy Biz Lord of the Rings Shelob. Now that we're done with all that, it's measuring time. So, figure standing at just kind of a casual height is a little over 5 inches tall. So, like I said, it scales pretty dang well with Bandai Godzilla figures. It's quite nice. So, that's pretty much all I've got to say for the Trendmaster Shatter Blast Godzilla. And overall, I think he's pretty fun. I think it's a neat little figure. I mean, it's a Godzilla with a missile launching gimmick, so that's always neat. It does interfere with the mouth articulation, but it's still fun, it's a Trendmasters toy, so it is meant for, a bit more of a younger kid. And I think this is pretty neat. I do quite like it. And I was pretty excited when I found this thing, because I knew that Trendmasters 98 Godzilla figures existed, but I didn't know there were any in this. Well, knocked it over. My bad. But I didn't know there were any in this scale. I always thought they came in like 8 inches or 12 inches. I didn't know there was a 6-inch one too. So that was really cool. Can't speak. That was really cool, because I've always was searching for, 6-inch Zilla, 98 Godzilla, whatever you want to call it, figure to go with, my other Bandai Godzilla figures. So when I found this, I was pretty happy. Of course, nowadays, we have actual Bandai Zilla figures, but when I got this, those didn't exist yet, so I was pretty happy when I got it. Now, if you wanted this for yourself, unfortunately, it's pretty expensive these days. Like, there you go. You can find some for like $40 to $50, and that's cheap. Those are the cheap ones. It usually goes for quite a bit more. So that is unfortunate, which is why I didn't get a complete one for this review, because yeah, that's a lot of money to spend on just a little tank thing. So yeah, figured like, I got the main figure here and the missile, so that was good enough for the review. But who knows? Maybe one day I will buy a complete one and do a re-review of the figure. But until then, that's all I've got to say. So hope you all enjoyed. See y'all later. Sayonara. Bye.